Hello, I'm John, and I recently purchased the Rotor Riot CL2 frame, which I have here today, and I'm going to assemble and show some differences and compare it to the Rotor Riot CL1 frame, which I've also owned and have flown quite a bit. And excuse this one, it's missing a KISS flight controller, but it's a little beat up, as you can see, and I was happy with it. It took a lot of abuse, took a beating, but it wasn't designed for digital, so you kind of had to remove the back standoffs and do your own thing to figure out how to use the CL1 with digital. With that said, let's go ahead and open up the CL2 and get started. Alright, so I got everything sorted out here. You've got your arms, foam pads for the feet, or you can use the landing skids. You've got the 3D printed parts for the Fat Shark system, and then the camera, the strap, the bottom brace plate, the bottom plate, top plate, battery pad, standoffs. These are the longer screws for the arms. Then you have the shorter screws, which are actually a 9mm screw for the standoffs, and they also include the motor screws. That's why there's so many of these. A set of stack screws if you're going to use the 30 or M3 in the middle, and then you've got some M2 screws for the rear for your VTX, and I guess those are for the Fat Shark system as well, and a couple nuts. I do want to compare a couple things first before we get started. All of these are the same thicknesses as the CL1, so that's 1.5 mils. I believe that's 2 mils, and this is bottom plate is 3 mils. It is a bit longer, hard to tell there, but it is a bit longer than the CL1, just so that you can fit all that digital stuff in there. And the biggest difference is the thickness of the arms. These arms are 4 mil, at least listed as 4 mil. A little bit thicker there. And then these ones on the CL1, if I can find a good spot to measure, were 5 mils and maybe even a little bit thicker. So that was one of my hesitations of the CL2, because I wanted that durability, those thick arms. The frame I've been flying, it did have 5mm arms, but they weren't as wide. And you can see too on these arms, the width on these ones, they are a little narrower than the CL1. But well, I've got some separate CL1 arms here, actually, that can be compared to. And let me throw a quick screw or two in here, and we can see that that bolt pattern, that lines up. So if you want to use CL2 or CL1 arms on this, that thicker arm, I'm pretty sure you can. Anyways, let's build something here. I'm just building the frame, not doing the full build here. So we got the bottom plate. Press nuts are already in there, so that's gonna screw, we're gonna screw the arms right into that. And so you're gonna have to set up each of these in advance so that now you can just stick that bottom brace plate on, which before I screw that on, it is a little bit different size than on the CL1, so maybe that's a little difference in durability too. So you may want to switch, if you're going to switch the arms, to switch out to that brace plate on the bottom too. These are the longer screws. We're going to go for the arms, and let's get something lined up. that's all lined up there. This is just a quick assembly. So when I do it for real, I'm going to go ahead and add Loctite to these screws. So overall, it's a very similar frame. Oh, one of the big differences is, and one of the reasons why I ordered this frame was that the standoffs are shorter. Yes, you can just swap out shorter standoffs on the CL1, but like I said, it wasn't meeting my needs for digital. So these are 25mm standoffs on the CL2 versus 30mm standoffs on the CL1. So those give you a little bit of space there. So I wanted to show too that you've got your 20x20 mounts in the middle, 30x30 in the middle for whichever size you fly. There is room up front here if you needed to fit a 20x20 in here. You're just going to have to drill your own holes. I believe these slots here are to zip tie down a receiver. In the back you've got 20x20, which I'm going to stick a Vista in here, so that's perfect for that. And I believe this is 25x25 for the Fat Shark system. And you've also got these slots to zip tie down whatever else you need to, or a regular analog receiver if you're going to fly this frame with analog. So this goes together pretty easily. Unlike some frames, you have to really figure out how they go together. This one's pretty straightforward. So if you wanted to, right now I see that there's these screws from the arms stick up a bit. So if you have some shorter screws, you know, that'll save a little bit on, I guess, space for your stack in the middle, because you're gonna have to clear that with whatever, with your gummies or whatever you use there for your stack. Also, if you go with shorter ones, it might save a little bit of weight. So now remember, that's the back, and we want the space up front for the camera. Everything lines up nicely. This is going together really well. Alright, so that's fully assembled there. Let's check out the weight of it. So online it says the weight's 166 grams, which I feel like is not accurate for just the frames. Probably got to include everything. So the frame itself there, 129.7 grams. So a little lighter than I thought. So let's just see what everything else adds up to. So your stack screws, these are all your motor screws. So we're getting up there now, 143.9. So, you know, I'm definitely going to put these on the skids. So there's 154. Give me some TPU. Antenna mount for the Fat Shark system, which I am not. There's your 166. I guess a couple of these for the rear. So that's pretty much how you end up at that 166 grams. Oh, if you're gonna use the battery strap, or not battery strap, but the battery pad, that'll get you up there. So that's what I got for that. Compared to the CL1, very similar. I like that there's more room back here for digital on the CL2. We'll see how I guess I'm going to try the 4mm arms and see how it goes. But I did want the 5mm arms. But like I said, I've got a couple of those here right now, so I'm actually going to try it. It's going to be a three-legged, three-arm quad for the moment. But I just want to see. I want to see if it can be done. It's close, but there might be some compromises here. Alright, I'm beginning to figure out what the difference is. These arms will go in here with the bolt pattern, but there's a different issue. The issue appears to be the head of the screws for the standoffs. I don't know. Oh, did that line it up? Yeah, it's kind of a shame. It's super close. I see the problem of why they're different arms. They still could have been 5mm thick, but it's probably not going to show up on camera. But the head of the standoff screws gets in the way of these 5mm CL1 arms to sit flat on the frame, so it doesn't really sit flat. The holes line up and everything. It can be done if you want to shave out a little bit of space out of that arm. I'm sure you could do that. So that answers my question on if the 5mm CL1 arms will fit on this frame, because I liked everything else about it, and the space. That space is going to be nice back there. Let me just put it back to the normal way before I wrap up. Alright, so there it is. That's the CL2 frame by Rotor Riot. I hope I've answered some of your questions. I've answered a lot of my questions too. And hopefully this holds up just as well as the CL1 frame. And get out there and fly them.